Thanks for the reminder there, Ken.
Looks like maybe people are typing a little bit, although it looks like people might be fairly comfortable with the process they're going through. Just really do stress that availability for support from Max or myself, over the next week or so as you're doing the Safe System Assessment. We really do want you to just sort of get your head around the process and then be able to do it in really any sort of road environment or any area that's connecting with the road environment. Okay. Well, don't hesitate. If you do think of something along the way, as we're thinking through today's short module, just pop it into the chat. I'll pause and we'll address it. So today's session is more about the general process and guidelines and the way safe system assessments are rolling out across Australia and New Zealand. And yeah, little bits and pieces from that perspective. So it is certainly an opportunity if you want to ask any wider questions about your organisation and how safe system assessments fit into those or requirements around it from different jurisdictions. I'm fairly across what's happening in all jurisdictions and in Australia and New Zealand with safe system assessments, but if there is something that pops up, I'm not sure I'll be able to track the right people down and find out for you. So this session is really about understanding the benefits of safe system assessment. So I'll introduce you to some research evaluation that was done on safe system assessments to understand whether they're valuable, a valuable exercise, and I'll show you through that. I think that's important for you to be aware of this as people ask you about safe system assessments once you're out there as a safe system assessor. The process of safe system assessments within an infrastructure project and explain the difference between safe system assessments and road safety audits. We touched on that early on, but I'll just delve into a bit more detail because that's probably the most common response from a lot of people is, why do we do a safe system assessment? We're going to do road safety audits, or we've done a road safety audit, so why are we doing this thing as well? Don't forget to count your wallies, of course, and there will be a final quiz for this, which is really your last assessment task, assuming you get your you've got to get your safe system assessment in. I'm going to spend a fair bit of time on this graph here because it is sort of the key output of the independent evaluation of 35 safe system assessments on huge projects. Like, we're not talking small projects, we're talking town bypasses, major road duplication style projects. These are your $50 million plus projects here. Some of them were, up near $1 billion, these projects. So 35 of them were taken and independently evaluated by Blair Turner, who's currently road safety specialist at the World Bank. World Bank, I think. But anyway, him and his team did that evaluation. And let me talk you through it and explain it to you because it gives quite a few insights here. Let's just have a look first of all. What are our axes here? So we've got FSI crashes. FSI is fatal serious injury crashes, and that's a prediction, and it's a 20-year prediction. So what they did was they used a crash prediction model, which is very similar to IRAP, the International Road Assessment Program, or OSRAP, or ANRAM. So these are all sort of models that can forecast number of deaths and serious injuries based on road attributes, speeds, traffic composition, and the like. So we get a pretty accurate prediction of what's to come. So they used a crash prediction model, and what they did is they looked at a scenario where the project does not happen. Okay, so there will be no upgrades, there will be no town bypass, there will be no alterations. They forecast that with growth, and this is what they came out with here. So they said in these areas, so instead of bypassing the town, it goes through the town. Instead of duplicating the road, it stays as single carriageway, and all of this. They said through that travel in those areas, it was predicted there would be 7,900 serious injuries, 344 fatalities in the next 20 years in these areas. So then they looked at the original design that was handed over to the Safe System Assessor, and these were predominantly done by the big design houses of the big multinationals, the big design houses churning out the big designs. They were at a sort of reference design level, so they had some meat on the bone, but not to your detailed design level. And I think it was about 30 or 32 of them had been subject to a functional design road safety audit. No, sorry, not functional design, feasibility stage road safety audit, like the early stage road safety audit. And those changes had been incorporated in. So the majority had been through that audit process. So what that showed was that these designs were bringing the numbers down to 6,700 serious injuries and 286 fatalities. Then what they did is they looked at the safe system assessments that had been done. And they looked at all the recommendations that take into account the context of the project and trying to come up with meaningful recommendations, which give us really striving to higher alignment with safe system principles. And they plugged that through the model if they were to be accepted. And it dropped it to 3,890 serious injuries, 167 fatalities in the 20 years. Then they looked at what was accepted and taken forward by the project team. And that went back up a little bit to 5,298 serious injuries, 227 fatalities in the next 20 years. Okay, so this is interesting, and it tells me a heap, right? So let me talk you through what it tells me. First of all, the first insight I think we need to take out of this is that generally the designs we produce improve road safety. The big design houses, turning them off road upgrades, we are improving road safety. Okay, so there is a road safety improvement. So we're not saying that these are bad as such. It's just a whole lot more could be done. The next one sort of shows me that difference there from what was produced and subject to a road safety audit and comes in. There is a huge amount more that we can do. We can reduce deaths and serious injury. It's a heap. The difference between this sort of line and here, that to me is an interesting one, which is really about, well, what do these project teams deem as acceptable? Are they willing to do some of these treatments? Is there cost involved? Is there political challenges to it? Are they just don't like that treatment because they've not done it before? What the safe system assessors are producing, right? But the difference between that line and that line, that is the immediate, straight away win you get from undertaking a safe system assessment. But just literally going through this process of assessing, scoring, coming up with ideas and changes, and then them saying, well, yeah, we can do some of that, but we can't do it all, but we immediately can get sort of that level of improvement. So that's pretty awesome. I mean, that's our immediate win, and that in itself easily justifies the process of safe system assessing on these projects. Absolutely, huge wins. There's a couple of other insights that I find really interesting. Well, I mean, I'm fascinated by this one, this gap, for a whole lot of reasons, which is, around what do we need to do to alter that culture, to get more political commitment, to get our leaders backing some of these ideas and moving us forward, and like, why can't we do this? And that's going to be, have to be worked on in capability capacity building, in political lobbying, and trying to get more funding to to these projects for safety initiatives and the like. So that's one pretty big insight. Another insight question, I suppose, is why we got this gap or this gap. Why are the designs being produced like this? And for me, that one is a combination of, we need to build more capability capacity within these organizations in understanding how to do these designs in a more safe system aligned manner. We need to improve standards and guidelines and keep reviewing those and updating those to better reflect best practice safe system cores. So that one is interesting. I mean, the fact that these safe system assessments will feed back to the designers. So they will get a safe system assessment, they will review it, they'll update their design. The next design they do, they'll be like, oh yeah, that safe system assessment said that. Maybe I do that from the start. So I'm hoping we're going to see this, coming down over time. So that's, there are a couple of interesting ones. The other one I found fascinating was this one. And we're doing a safe system assessment. We have an aspiration of 0 deaths and serious injuries. Yet even after our safe system assessment, these ideas go forward, we've still got this massive residual crash problem, don't we? And this is interesting. I sort of questioned it a bit when I read this, or the report was sort of tabled. I was like, oh. But when you delve into it, the crash prediction models are pretty good in the sense that they take into account, all of humans being human, and a lot of what we're seeing in this area down here are the motorcycles. So yeah, a fairly vulnerable road user going at high speed still. We see the extreme driver behaviours. So we talked in module 1 about them not being the dominant cause of road trauma, but they're still sort of a pretty significant part, and they're highly represented in this. So when we get all of our infrastructure as good as we know about now, there's still a residual challenge. So this area, I think we need to start thinking differently about. We need to innovate with our road infrastructure. We need to come up with new ways to manage energy, to alter things, to think about the specific road users. We need to tap into the other elements of the safe system, the vehicles. So we need to really get those vehicles to start to intervene in a lot of scenarios. There's more we can do in people, in enforcement, in behavioural change interventions and the like, and wider societal interventions and things like that. Yeah, so that's the evaluation. I think it's interesting. I'll pause and see if anybody has any comments or questions around that, or anything that are associated with the benefits of safe system assessments. I think my next slide sort of runs through dot points on a few of the benefits, but I think it's good you're a safe system assessor to know that they're highly valuable. Max, is there anything I need to talk to?
Nothing quite at this stage, Ken.
Okay, well, do put those questions or comments in anytime you want. And so here are those dot-pointed benefits. A great way of determining how well a project aligns with safe system principles. And that's what we've been, I think, craving as an industry for a long time. I remember, when I was managing programs, and there'd be a lot of people sort of talking in this binary language about safe system and saying, this program will only do safe system projects. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? And bear in mind, I've been doing safe system since 2004, and I still say, well, what does that actually mean? What are you saying by that? What they're really saying is, things that align highly with safe system principles. But it just got us in these funny debate, and we had no way of sort of measuring and making that commentary until the safe system assessment framework was tabled, and now you can quantify and score, and we can get some actual measurable decisions around that. Before that, it was sort of just people's opinion on what they thought was was in their mind safe system or not, and I think that was that caused a lot of trouble. It's a great way to compare project design options from a safe system perspective. So with a lot of big projects, as many of you know, there's things like multi-criteria assessments. Options are laid down on the table, and it used to be really that some sort of road safety audit was done, and then it was a bit of that one's safer, or there's no real issues with any of them from a safety perspective. There was like traffic modeling or something came in, and it was just the big juicy report and level of services, and really clear that they could be plugged into these multi-criteria assessments. We didn't have that really before with road safety and safe system alignment, but now this gives us a number that we can inject into those sort of things, and we can see that different projects options which align better, which don't. And that's a wonderful win. And I often do say that, and I'm sure many of you have been in this situation, and I've been many, many, many times in my career where we're faced with a decision around the form of an intersection or the project options, and the traffic modeling outputs would always sort of win because they were, the SIDRA analysis or something like that, the juicy report, and it looks very, this is ironclad. And the road safety was sort of everybody having an opinion on it, and so it got put down in its importance, I think, due to not having that clarity. The safe system assessment, when produced well, and you get a nice good report, and it's got lots of numbers and graphs and it comes in there, it starts to hold the same sort of weight as these other tools, and so that's good. That's good. And I always do find it funny. I mean, you are finding out at the moment the current sort of subjectivity of safe system assessments, where we're making a judgment on some of the numbers. Well, there's elements of that within traffic modeling as well, for those who know it. And I'm no expert traffic modeler, so I don't, but I can certainly challenge our traffic modelers and say, well, what if you make some different assumptions around this? What would change? And they can do that. So, it's not as ironclad. But what we are doing at the moment is trying to produce more industry guidance and baseline scoring, so we get more consistency around scores, and they can start to be used as a bit of a comparative tool. Currently, we don't recommend comparing safe system assessments for different sites done by different safe system assessment teams from their raw scores, because it because there's a fair bit of variance between scores that are coming through. The process is still wonderful, regardless. Information on design changes will improve proposal closer alignment with safe system objectives there. So that's a really good one and an obvious one, I think. Yeah, this one, to move the safe system approach from theory to practice is just wonderful. It's such a safe system at a philosophical level, at the principles, is such a, airy-fairy sort of thing. No death or serious injury. People make mistakes. It's all great, and executive directors and ministers and the like they have to sign up to it. But with us on the ground with actual projects and decisions to be made, it becomes very hard to get that to a solid clarity. This process does that, and it's really helpful from that perspective. And it's a sound basis for future planning of the road infrastructure. Max, anything for me?
Still kicking along quite well. Thank you, Ken.
Very good. Very good. Let's talk through the process. This is the general process of a safe system assessment within an infrastructure project, okay? So the first thing to note is that the best time to do a safe system assessment is early in the project. The concepts, the planning, the drafts, the different ideas. Once there are detailed designs, even sort of functional designs, detailed designs, it's actually sort of better to do a road safety audit, in my experience. Safe system assessment's okay, and it works well, but there is just more sort of major change likely to be put forward in a safe system assessment than there is in a road safety audit. I mean, road safety auditors, and some of you are road safety auditors, you've done the course with me. We teach that you're not there to fundamentally question the project, the way they're doing something. You're there to just identify safety concerns associated with it. The safe system assessment is just more aligned with really questioning the intersection form, the operating speeds and these sort of things. There's overlap. I mean, audits do a bit of that. But anyway, what we have seen is sort of safe system assessments done at detailed design stage, sort of just before construction, and the safe system assessment comes back with recommendations of full intersection form changes. They're planning signalised intersections on this duplicated 80km/h road. Safe system assessment comes back and says, well above energy tolerances, bad scores there. So we recommend either you do raised intersections, you do signalised roundabouts, or you do And the project team's just like, well, we don't want to know that. Those choices were made years ago. You don't give us that, and then you're just getting this sort of useless scenario. Anyway, so early is better. I did mention road safety audits there quite a few times, and this diagram, I'd say, it's getting a little old because our industry is moving nicely with road safety auditing. We're doing a lot of work to try to get auditors more safe system aligned, but this still sort of remains out there, and I'll just take you through it. So a road safety audit will identify issues that impact the likelihood of crashes, as will a safe system assessment. Impact the severity of crashes, right? So sometimes for audits, and always for safe system assessments, because it's clearly stated there. The reason I say sometimes is that there are just lots and lots of examples of road safety audits that come back ignoring the fundamental severity aspects because they're focused solely on the likelihood. And the classic is the signalized intersection example I was just using before, where we see these audits come in. It's an 80 km/h environment, it's a proposed signalized intersection, and the auditor does an amazing job in identifying likelihood issues. You know, sight lines to signals, the surface, the line marking, the phasing, you know, where the sun is going to be, all of this. And lots of issues come through. But none of the issues are addressing that energy and that inherent sort of risk when the red light has been run. So all they're doing is trying to stop people running the red lights. But the safe system says, yes, we're going to do all that. Absolutely, that's super important. We're not going to stop everybody running the red lights though, because that's impossible, right? What we're going to do is try to address the severity as well. Identifies impact on the exposure to crashes. Really, audits, maybe across is a bit harsh there, because maybe it's a sometimes as well. But auditors don't have, again, that specific lens of exposure drawn out of likelihood. Provides recommendations that improve road safety. Well, they both do that, absolutely. Considers all road users. Yes, again, everybody is thought about in both processes. Focuses on fatal and serious injuries only. That's what a safe systems assessment is all about. Road safety audits will often delve into other injury, more minor incidents, and be sort of focusing on how they can eliminate those as well. And that can be very valuable when you're doing a project. The safe system assessment just has that death and serious injury lens. And that's the next one, is talking about all crashes. And then we get those wider questions, those qualitative questions associated with the vehicles, the people, maintenance, post-crash care. And this is where, you know, safe system assessments are far more holistic in what they're looking at. Big picture questions, as well as that details around the infrastructure. Make recommendations to redesign the project, right? And yeah, auditors are not, they're tweaking on what the project is. The safe system assessment has more to fundamentally sort of shift the project, or recommend to do that. Encouraging innovative designs. And this to me is actually one of the most powerful ones, where a lot of road safety audits do come back and they're there by their nature pointing out risks of new and innovative designs, okay? But the benefits of those innovative new designs is kind of hidden. Like that, the auditor's not saying how wonderful this new thing will be, and here are a few small risks you need to work through. They're just talking about those small risks, which then start to look like this massive risk, where the safe system assessment framework does that scoring. And so you can see these huge drops in score, right, for this innovative project. And then the residual, what's there, needs to be worked on. But the road safety audit is solely focused on those risks. So I often see road safety audits stifling innovation. Innovation that could save heaps of lives, right? Because they're concentrating on, you know, the small amount that will increase that small increased risk, and ignoring the massive drop in risk. So safe system assessments can also be done at a program level. They're very versatile. You can do them like on a remote community. You can safe system assess the whole community and area. You can do it at a whole program level. You can do a whole city if you wanted. It'd be a massive exercise, but you could. So very scalable and versatile. So let's talk through the sort of steps that you'll be going through as safe system assessors, or if you're you're running a project and you're getting safe system assessments done. The first thing is that whoever's sort of managing the project and the designer, they're going to decide, first of all, is a safe system assessment going to be part of our project? And if so, what sort of assessment is it going to be? Is it going to be a full safe system assessment, or is it going to be something more rapid? And I will define both of those two terms for you shortly. Okay, so the client, project manager, or somebody is making this decision. Often they're driven by what their state policies tell them, or their jurisdictional policies, or their local government policies tell them they have to do or they don't have to do. But there's a decision made. And then they go and select a safe system assessment team. And they hopefully, look to one of you, or they go to different registers that are starting to appear of safe system assessors. They make sure they know what they're doing, that they're qualified, they've done the course, and they then engage them to do the safe system assessment. Then there's some sort of exchange of information, right? It could be a commencement meeting, it could be a variety of phone calls and emails, and collecting the information that the team needs, and really drilling in and understanding the context of the project. We talked about movement in place and the like, getting an understanding of that. What are the projections on traffic volumes and pedestrians and cyclist numbers and all of that sort of information. So gathering lots of intel. Then the assessment team goes and looks at the site and completes the matrix or matrices, depending on how many options are put forward. And you'll always do that existing conditions and then the design that they've put forward to you. Those other elements of the safe system are considered through those qualitative questions. Treatments to improve safe system alignment are then, thought about. What can we do better in this project? What can be altered? What can be changed? And it's reported. And then it's sent off to the client who gets it and then is going to respond to those ideas. Not necessarily responding to the safe system assessment team, but they should, in their own project process, be saying, yep, we can do that one, we can do that one. We can't do that one because, that would add, $16 million to the project and we're over budget already. But instead of that, we'll do these other three, whatever they're saying. So they've got a nice, clean, documented process. And then they go and amend the design based on what they've agreed and, agreed that they will do. And occasionally, once they're, at this point, so they've gone, yep, we'll do this. We want, we'll do these 6. We can't do these 3. That's what we're going to alter. Sometimes they will send it then back to the safe system assessment team and say, can you rescore that? Can you rescore that? And that's what I plan up. And why do they do that? Well, what they're doing there is they are showing that they have followed this process, because they will, have maybe their existing conditions will be a score of, 200. Their design had a score of 180, and then they want to be able to add this next column, which says, well, we got a safe system assessment done and we've taken those on and it's brought the score down to whatever it is, 100 or something like that, right? And that is wonderful sort of documentation to leaders, corporate executives, project directors and everybody like that, that you've gone, hey, we were going to, it wasn't bad, we were going to improve road safety, but we're, committed to the safe system. We've all signed up to that, and we've done this assessment, and we've managed to bring it all the way down to here. We would love to see this go down to 0, but there's going to be challenges to get that. But somewhere down there, it tells a story to anybody viewing it that you've done the best you can to progress this project forward with safe system alignment. Max, questions?
We did have one, which I'm happy for you to expand on, Ken, if you'd like. Just if you think, or the reason there's a reluctance perhaps to get involved with SSAs, and I just mentioned that perhaps it's just not well known as a methodology in general, and practitioners aren't familiar with its application or when you should use it, or really what's the point of it, what's its output. So that's probably one aspect. Did you have any other things you could add in that space, Ken?
Well, I think that's a really good insight there, Max. I think it's a new process, so the fear of the unknown is probably a big one. People just not knowing what it is, why they should do it. Sometimes people just like, oh God, another process to do. These projects are complicated enough already. A lot of those are just myths, and they're being dispelled quite nicely. Jurisdictions have, road controlling authorities have done some really exciting things in my mind to sort of streamline some of this. So I think Victoria's initiative to say, if you do a safe system assessment at the early stages of a project, it supersedes, it negates the need for a road safety audit at that same stage. So sort of showing that we're not just adding extra red tape here. We've just got a better process at those early stages for thinking about road safety than the road safety audit. So we just replace it with that one. So I think that's good from that, not just extra burden of process perspective. I think the more and more people who do this course, who are advocates for safe system assessments, who are doing safe system assessments and working with project teams to help them improve things, is going to make it better. People will lose their fear of it because they'll see it's just a process to help things along. They're not bound by anything. It is a process that assists. Some people also have a fear of, I suppose, the costs that might be involved in doing the actual safe system assessment. I think that's been fairly quashed. I mean, some of the early, we're talking 10 years ago, early stage ones, people didn't know what they were doing, and that sometimes, there were some safe system assessments done that were they're massive. They were like 3 or 4 month projects, and so obviously the costs were huge. I mean, what they got was an amazing output, but it's one of those things where they would spend another 2 months to get like a 0.5 of accuracy, where what we want to do is a fairly quick, a fairly low cost run over a project and say, this is how well it aligns, here's some ideas, and here are some good ways that you could get things better, and that's it. So comparatively, from a cost sense, I'd say that safe system assessments really are not much more costly than a road safety audit. There's a little bit more sometimes involved in them, but in general, that seems to be where the mold has sort of found itself, that a detailed design road safety audit and a concept safe system assessment would be relatively much the same from that resource perspective. So I think we're in a good position. It's going to go forward. This group is sort of in the early adopter group on something that is really starting to take off. We're seeing it now, and I'll sort of show you this shortly, but mandated across most jurisdictions now as part of infrastructure. It's happening more and more. We're seeing lots of people taking it on or showing an interest in how it's done and what it is. And there's a huge boom of this to come, and you're in on the early stages. And being able to sort of help solidify that within industry and help all these major projects or other projects to get really good safe system alignment. So it's exciting. Okay, I'll keep going. I'll show you a little bit of that stuff that I was talking about with what jurisdictions are doing. And I'll start with Victoria here. Victoria was probably, they were the earliest to adopt safe system assessment. So myself and a few colleagues did the first ever safe system assessment in 2013. Before that, there had been some safe, what they called, we were calling them safe system audits, but we didn't want to confuse people with a road safety audit. Anyway, but Victoria really took it on and had done a whole lot of things, and Australia's has then taken it on at a later stage. But Victoria has the their own set of guidelines, and lots of templates available. And you're now getting familiar with one of those templates, and you should use it. Victoria is one of 2 jurisdictions to publish a register or a list of safe system assessors that they, I suppose, recommend. There's the word that they've decided to use. They're dancing around different words like qualified or accredited or the like. They call them recommended safe system assessors. And this is here. So the way they're going to grow the list, they want to, army of safe system assessors out there, but currently it's a smaller list. But they should, you contact the team. You can do that at any point. You do this course, tick, you've done that. You go and do a safe system assessment, a real one, where you have a workshop with the project team to gather that information, to understand things. You actually document it up properly and inspect the site, write it up using their template, and then you submit that and it's actually assessed, and they'll give you any feedback and you might need to change things. So you're well on your journey here if you're interested in getting onto that register. A little bit more work for you to do. As I say, Victoria and South Australia are the only ones that are documenting this, any lists. Other jurisdictions are pretty much just saying, well, you've done a course, or if you've done this course, you and have that certificate, you're pretty much there, because they know that we do all the quizzes and the testing, and then you have to submit an assignment. So you've proven some competency anyway. And the list is just published periodically there, and it's a PDF that gets updated, and you can see it's sort of there, and it's got the list of people, the organisation. There's Max down there. Max, you're on the list. And there's a few pages of that now, and it's growing, and it's good. It's good. The South Australians have also got a list, but theirs is a lot easier to get onto, in the sense that you do this course and successfully complete it, and so you submit all those things, and you get you just get the certificate, and then you just email them the certificate. You email it to Natasha, and that, as long as it correlates that yes, you in fact did the course, so your unique code on your certificate matches what we have provided them, you will be added to their list of pre-qualified. So they've used a slightly different term. You'll be pre-qualified with the South Australian government to undertake safe system assessments. But they're the only 2 jurisdictions that are publishing that. I think others are interested. Queensland's certainly interested in just adding it to the road safety audit register. So having a separate column that just sort of ticks, yep, safe system assessor. New South Wales, I think, is just sort of standing back and watching, see what's happening with road safety auditing in general, and how this might fit in, and the like. So at the moment, they're just sort of saying, if you've got the appropriate, you've done the course, and we'll be okay with that, or if you're proving it that you're on another jurisdiction's register, that's fine as well. Some exciting other things to know. Queensland, the TMR, the Transport and Main Roads road safety policy, mandates safe system assessments. Actually mandates it for every project, regardless of size. Now, there's been a bit of how do we actually do that and think about that going on in the background. But that's pretty exciting from a policy perspective, isn't it? New Zealand's road safety strategy also says that one of their KPIs is how many projects have been subject to a safe system assessment. So we're seeing jurisdictions sort of integrating this into policy, and it always takes time for this sort of stuff to happen, but it's good. It's good. The Victorians and I say VicRoads corporate requirements, probably Department of Transport corporate requirements now, but still labelled as VicRoads under different documents, still not quite updated. They've got a bit more refined. So they're saying any project less than $2 million needs a rapid safe system assessment. And then remember, I'm going to tell you what a rapid is and a full, and slight differences. If they decide that a formal assessment is required. Between 2 million and 5 million total estimated cost of project, a full safe system assessment needs to be done for complex projects, projects with significant fatal serious injury risks or innovative projects. A rapid could be okay for lower risk projects or any repeat safe system assessments or projects that already had a safe system assessment done on them. Anything above 5 million, well, just full safe system assessment needs to be done. And only a rapid if it's an update that, you know, it's already been done at an early stage and you're doing another one just to check on things. So that's pretty exciting. Again, we're seeing some, you know, some policy requirements, some mandating of this going forward. And so let's just very briefly look at what is this difference between this full and this rapid, or if you're in Queensland, you might you might hear the term light instead of rapid. They're very similar processes. It's all pretty much the same except for a few elements. And really we see there, the full safe system assessment has a commencement meeting and get all the context of the project as we talked about. There's this workshop. Now that's sort of in there as optional, but that's one thing in a rapid that usually drops off. The site inspection is one that can also drop off with the rapid sometimes. Now, I still encourage the site inspection even in a rapid, but it's one that that can be dropped off. The matrix is done for the existing conditions and all the options in both. The other elements of the safe system, those qualitative questions, that's another one that drops off with the rapid. So it's just solely down to the matrix and recommendations. Changes to improve road safety. The reporting obviously is a little bit less for a rapid, and then the project then considers it, makes changes, and amends it. So really, those are the four that could drop off in a rapid. So we're not talking about like a light being 10% of the effort. I mean, it's still sort of 75% of the effort anyway, but it's just a bit quicker to do. Okay, Max, what we're going to do is I'm going to see if there's any questions, and we're going to have a bit of a stretch and a fill up of the water and coffees and the like. And then what we're going to do to finalise and finish off today's session is to just run through a series of road environments, have a brief discussion about how well they align with safe system principles, what can be done to make them better align with safe system principles, and what you think about. The reason we want to do that is that we have given this group, and every individual has one particular road environment that they're doing this safe system assessment on. Could be a local road environment, could be an arterial, but we want you to be able to do a safe system assessment on any part of the road network. And so when you go out of this, we want you to have at least had some thinking around a whole lot of different road stereotypes and road environments, just so you got a little feel for that. So anyway, that's what we'll do after we have a little break. But any questions for me, Max?
No, I think we're okay. Just typing away a response to Stephen at the moment, but I'll let you carry on.
No, good. Well, we are going to pause there, Max. So let's take 4 minutes, and we'll be back in 4 minutes' time, and we should be finished this early enough for you to be able to do your quiz and get back to your safe system assessment. So back in 4 minutes. Okay. Ready to get back into it, Max?
Let's go for it.
Right. Let's spend the next half hour or so just having a look at a few road environments, and we're going to look at Yep, residential environments, shopping strips, mixed-use arterials, low volume, high volume, rural roads, outer suburban arterials, and urban and rural freeways. So let's get a little bit of interaction going here. Here you've got a residential street, just the default 50 km/h speed zone. Accessing onto a sort of more major collector down here, collector road. It's a car parking. It's obviously got people there. Just jot into the chat there ideas that you have on what we could alter here to get better alignment with safe system principles. And why not for fun, just because you're exposure likelihood severity experts now, just pop in an E, an L, or an S, depending on what you're proposing to change, exposure likelihood or severity. We'll give people a few minutes on that. Because you can absolutely do safe system assessments on these sorts of streets or areas like this, thinking about local area traffic management plans or these sorts of things. Okay, seeing some good stuff coming in there. Thank you to those who are popping things in and popping in exposure likelihood and severity as well. So we do see some really good stuff, and quite a number of people focusing on how do we reduce speeds through there, and that's going to give us benefit from both likelihood and severity. And well done. And there's many ways it could be done with local area traffic management, speed humps, or different ways to do that. So these are very, very good, important things, and we do need to get the speeds on these down. One thing that nobody seems to, unless I missed it, be talking about is, does it need to open up an access to this? Are there other ways? Could we close that off? And so, alter the exposure to crashes from that perspective. And maybe when you're looking at that, it's not possible. And certainly we want to lower the speeds. But we do want to do anything we can to, make this not a thoroughfare, a rat run. And if so, people are going through very low speeds. And that's key. A few people are talking about removing parking to open up sight lines to reduce the likelihood of crashes. And that's correct, that it'll reduce likelihood from that sense. But you always need to be careful that speeds are not going to go up when you remove all the parking and thus cause increases in likelihood and severity from that sense. So if you do it, you can utilize the road space in beautiful ways to try to keep it narrow, keep speeds down, do local area traffic management and open those sight lines if you want. So those are all good ideas. I like it all. Yep, so excellent stuff. And one last one that came in there, street lighting for likelihood is correct. Yeah, it's a likelihood factor. So here's another one. I'll give a prize, Max, because I'm in a prize giving mood. First person to tell me where this one is. And then we will do
Melbourne? No, it doesn't look like Melbourne to me, Ken. No, is it Bondi Beach?
Oh, it's Bondi Junction. It's Bondi Junction. So I don't know who you're going to decide to give that to, but
yeah, I'll give it to Bronte. She popped in first there.
Okay, well, Bondi Beach is just down the road, but it's close enough. So these sorts of areas are interesting. And I did look at this one quite a while back, safety investigation of the area and the like, and certainly just sort of staggered to see the speed of vehicles through there for the fact that it is such a place for people. It's the entry to the railway station, the big shopping complex, the amount of activity and pubs and all sorts of things in the area. And we really are significantly advancing in our thinking around these areas where, we no longer need to provide that fast movement for vehicles through these areas, because we've identified it, as a place, and it should be treated accordingly. And even these sorts of areas, you really don't want to start doing things like, fencing off this and fencing off that and creating one crossing point down here or something like that, which could be done and probably gets you better alignment with safe system principles, but you lose a whole lot of the feel, the place of it. You'll probably actually have people walking along the road on the inside of these in more risky areas as well. So we really want to see these speeds blanketed down, raised platforms and the like are really good, closing off roads to vehicles if we possibly can. Really looking at the exposure to crashes and the severity of crashes as big areas where we can get a massive amount of benefit out of these areas, and it's going to increase the livability of the area, the place value of the area. I won't spend too much more time on that. Go to another Sydney example. So let's have a look at this one. Mixed-use arterials are very challenging, very, very challenging. I call a mixed-use arterial this sort of roads, major sort of road, but it's also got lots of peds and cyclists and buses and all those sorts of things. But let's do that same little exercise again. Jot in, I'll give you a couple of minutes. Jot in some ideas on this road. Gee, what's the speed limit here? I forget. I think it's 60. Well, it might be 60 through this bit. Let's call it 60 for our little exercise. Speed. So what do you think we could do to get better alignment with safe system principles on a road like this? And tell us if it's exposure, likelihood, or severity. So we're seeing some really good ideas coming in there. I'll go through a few of those in a second. I'll just give others a little opportunity if they had something to add. Okay, let's have a look at a few of the ideas that are coming in here. And I suppose one of the first questions I would expect we would all be asking in a safe system assessment is more and more information about the strategic function of the road, the movement in place, what their aspirations are, and those sorts of things to help us make that decision. But what we're seeing, people coming up with ideas, we've got a little bit of a trend happening in this people writing in here to look at sort of that separation of vulnerable road users through pedestrian overpasses, underpasses, and those sorts of things to change the exposure to crashes. And that will certainly improve road safety, exposure to crashes. To me, it would really depend on what the function of the road is as to whether that's appropriate. You would lose place value. By doing that, you would improve safe system alignment, that's for sure. And it's the same with fencing off and the like. And I think that's really just dependent on how much we want to use this as a traffic route, as a quick bus route, as compared to a slow, more place-like environment. But each of those is perfectly acceptable in terms of alignment with safe system principles if those decisions have been made around what around what objectives there are with this road. So a few people have got a few things that have come in around trying to still again lower the speed of vehicles through these areas, and I think that's absolutely correct. If we have these areas where we have pedestrian activity, cyclist activity, and it's those speeds are beyond safe system tolerance by a reasonable amount. We know there will be lots of pedestrian activity and mistakes and intoxicated pedestrians and all sorts of things going on. We need to start to recognise that and incorporate that into our design thinking and slow vehicles through these areas. And that can be done, many ways, but certainly raised crossing points, raised intersections is a great way to sort of do that breaking up of the ability to have a fast run through these areas, and that's okay. One little one that I really like, and some of you probably used it or heard of it, is what I call a dwell on red, or we call a dwell on red or a rest on red. The idea is that in an area like this, if there are pubs and nightclubs and other areas where during the hours of maybe we say 7 o'clock Friday night or 10 o'clock Friday night till 4 in the morning and Saturday night around the same time, we recognise the increased risk-taking activity of pedestrians and the like. And so what we do is we just default the traffic signals to sit on red as their resting position. And it's only when a vehicle sort of comes up to it and triggers it, it goes a green and then it drops back to red, as opposed to the way we'd usually do it, which would be resting on green, wouldn't it? And then it go through. And that's a real sort of recognition that at those hours, moving vehicles through there is not a priority in protection of our vulnerable and intoxicated pedestrians. And to me, it's a nice sort of safe system thinking example, from the sense that you can get absolutely fixated and angry about the intoxicated pedestrian behaviour and just blame and close off to that. Or we can say, we're not going to encourage that activity. We can do other things to try to reduce it. But what do we have control of? And what can we alter in the road environment? We can rephase it and slow things down at those times and make it a safer area for pedestrians. And raising the crossing point here would be wonderful. And if you're worried about buses, well, potentially we could have some sort of bus one that doesn't get raised or something like that. You could do some bit of design thinking, but really we do have to slow vehicles through these sorts of environments down to 30 kilometres an hour or so, or maybe 40. But trying to get them a decent continuous flow when it's the peak hour of traffic and trying to move many vehicles through there. But at those other hours, are we needing that? And that's where variable speed limits will also come into play, which is going to be much more prolific going forward and altering speeds based on, you know, risk levels and other desires. These sorts of roads are going to be incredibly difficult moving forward for us. So we have these roads, they're low volume, they're high speed, so it'll be 100 kilometers per hour. It'll be, and potentially 85th percentile higher than that. We've got obviously a lot of roads around Australia and New Zealand that are like this or lower standard. And how are we going to incorporate our understanding of safe system energies? If we're doing a safe system assessment on it, what are we sort of saying? Because you look at it and you go, well, we can get high alignment with safe system principles. We know it's a movement corridor for passenger vehicles predominantly, and maybe some heavy vehicles. We know what a safe system, high aligned safe system would be, to have, a barrier down the middle and barriers on the outside, this wonderful environment. The cost of that across these networks will be obscene, and we just simply won't be able to afford to do that. So some roads, when they're identified as being the one that is going to start to carry the majority of the volume, will start to get these upgrades and the like. A lot of them, I think, it's where we get into the space of understanding that we have to reduce likelihood as much as we possibly can with what we've got in our current toolkit and other ones. And that's things like sealing shoulders, audio tactile edge line, audio tactile center line, maybe a wide center line, and steal a bit of the width of the lane there. Isolated hazard protection for protection of road users from hazards, and then probably we are going to start to see some of these roads down to 80 kilometre per hour speed limits, maybe with some mobile point-to-point enforcement. The community is not quite there in a lot of these scenarios accepting that, but if you look at it from a non-emotive position, the lower order roads should be lower speed to encourage people to use the higher order roads, where we're going to invest the big dollars in the infrastructure and the continuous barrier systems and the like. So that's kind of how you would do it. There will be mobile point-to-point speed cameras, which I think will be a wonderful thing. They'll no doubt be here shortly. So that's where you've got your, they'll put a car there with a camera that takes a photo of the number plate here, and then 10 kilometers down the road there's another car who takes that, and you work out the average speed through there. But you can move it around the network to try to gather some of that. So I think those sort of things, reducing the likelihood predominantly of crashes and the severity a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be really challenging, and I mean, Max has done a lot of work in speed zoning with me, and it's a challenging topic all round. But I'll probably leave it at that. Where you do get these higher order roads, and we have, although this doesn't look like it's got high volume, it's higher volume. We really will then start to see continuous 2+1, 1+1 style barrier systems down the middle, barrier systems out there, and it'll be that bumper bowling of roads where we know people can leave their lane and be captured by a barrier system. There's significant cost involved in this, but it's creating those environments we know are safer, which will allow for the high speed traffic without having to trade off the lives and the health of our community in order for that to happen. The intersections on those sorts of roads provide wonderful opportunities then to get better safe system alignment, so a roundabout or something there. And if you do have your central barrier system, it provides you a sort of a good opportunity to collect, access points and the like, so they can come down, turn around that, and go back that way, rather than having to have a gap in your barrier every few meters, which you can't do for minimum lengths of barrier systems and those sorts of things, of course. So strategically thinking about how you run a route like that is good, and certainly we can share with you some reports that we've done on strategic rollout of safe system alignment in a sort of 20, 30, 50-year projection on a road, and where it's best to target different things in a coordinated strategic effort rather than just doing these little points of bits and pieces here and there. How are we going on time? Okay. Let's hear from you on these sorts of roads where we've got an 80 km/h speed zone. It's a major traffic route, right? And you can see there it's got signalised intersections, got the bike lanes. It's got some bus stops. Really, that movement function for passenger vehicles is key here, and for cyclists as well. So what are you thinking that we might be able to do in these locations to get better alignment with safe system principles? All right, just pop it into the chat as you've been beautifully doing before. I'll give you a minute or two on that one. And Max, while they're doing that, when we get to the end, we're fairly close to the end of this sort of stuff. I will get you to just jump into Moodle and show everybody how they complete everything and get their certificate and all those final little bits and pieces, if that's all right.
No problem.
Okay, seeing some pretty good stuff come in there. Thank you. Just a couple more coming in there, I see. Yeah, okay, so we've seen some good ideas come in there. People trying to look at how we can reduce exposure likelihood and severity. Really, I mean, for these sorts of roads, the idea of having a cycle lane on a 80 km/h road with only a line separating is very poorly aligned with safe system principles, and we need to alter that. And certainly the idea of an off-road dedicated cycle facility or a shared path is absolutely critical in these environments. We cannot, it is just horrible alignment with safe system principles with cyclists, having that sort of setup. And by doing that, we're removing the vulnerable road user from that area. So there could be exposure or could be likelihood depending on how it's done and where it's done and the side road crossings and the like. So I think that's an important one to understand. I think if we are prioritizing and trying to keep vehicle traffic through there fast, it really requires that moving that away. Probably underpasses, overpasses and the like to get pedestrians from bus stop to bus stop or, to crossing points. But any at-grade intersections, we'd still be expecting these to be brought down in speed to your 50 km/h or below in order to, those really high conflict point areas, bringing the speeds down there. We can tweak around and play around with line marking and things. But the reality is the speeds are so high that is going to just play a little bit of tweaking on the top of likelihood. You've got massive severity to deal with. and you've got massive exposure to deal with. So your little tweaks aren't going to make a huge amount of difference there. And again, though, these are probably the environments where we recognise it's not trying to be a place. So that things like the pedestrian fencing or real barriers, and maybe fencing off more and more to stop the pedestrian, crossing through there, and specific crossing points. So those are the kind of things. It's not going to be a wonderfully beautiful road environment from a place perspective. Potentially there could be some beautification done of these areas in one way or another, with good thoughtful thinking around ensuring any landscaping and those sorts of things considers road safety. But it is, if you're going down that track, it's really going to be a almost sort of urban motorway more and more of that feel. And let's talk about sort of urban motorways and the like, and their alignment with safe system principles. We see that actually these roads perform pretty well in terms of their safe system alignment, due to the fact that they've the likelihood is low because of the very high standard of roadway. The severity is quite low due to the fact that they've weeded out a lot of the safe system, like bad safe system energy points, like any at-grade intersections. So we get that increased alignment there with acceleration lanes and conflict points at a low delta V. Also, elimination of the exposure of vulnerable road users. So, usually banning of cyclists in a lot of jurisdictions, or and pedestrians. We do, unfortunately, though, see a decent amount of pedestrian trauma on motorways and the like, due to broken down vehicles or people getting out of taxis at 2 in the morning and these sorts of things, and wandering around on the road and those sorts of things. So the real points for us to work through for higher safe system alignment are when the freeway starts to break down is one of them. So operating free flowing it operates really low likelihood of crashes. Operating fully saturated, like cars are sort of banked up, not really moving too much, there's high likelihood of crash in that scenario, but the severity is extremely low because the speeds are very low. What we see is a very bad sort of mix as the freeway breaks down in flow. And we see still the high speed, but it's getting, people are weaving, and then the crashes are happening at a higher speed. So what we like, what we get better alignment is to essentially hold the hand of the freeway as it breaks down, using managed motorway sort of things, gantries with speeds and ability to cross out lanes, ramp metering, so trying to do that, but proactively dropping the speed before the flow breakdown happens, and those sorts of things. So that's predominantly how we get better along the safe system principles out of these. And there are big rural highways, rural freeways. We know now, and we've talked about this already in the second module quite a bit. I mean, continuous barrier systems are definitely going to be our go on these sorts of roads until the cars, are completely driving themselves and don't leave the road. And we've got more and more of those, but there's still a huge amount leaving the road. So continuous barrier systems, thinking about appropriate rest stops along the way and other features, and then separating grade separating our interchanges, of course, and where you can't grade separate or the like, you want to close them off and direct them to other ones, interchanges. If that can't be done, really it becomes to a point of trying to, I suppose, draw this, block off, provide good acceleration lanes for a vehicle and enough space for them, and then a turnaround point and another acceleration lane back with plenty of space for them to transition over. And that's kind of how you can still get good safe system alignment. So they would accelerate up, merge in, merge across, turn, accelerate up, merge in, merge across, and make their turn. I mean, this is obviously much longer than I've drawn it on screen, but you need to bring those energies up to comparable, or the velocities up to comparable levels, and move them around, because that move with that vehicle is far, way above what is tolerable. And you know, roundabouts and things on these would be great, except for a lot of these national highways, the high reluctance to put roundabouts due to sort of slowing heavy vehicles down, slowing freight down, and those sorts of things. So this one can work quite well. Now, I think instead of a few other things, what I'll do is pause there. I think it's probably good timing. It'll give us 15 minutes. Max will in 5 minutes or so take you through that. I'll just say a few more things before I hand over to Max. This will give you time to just finish off any quizzes you haven't completed, to also really jump in and finish off that safe system assessment, or if if it's been on the back burner, it's going to give you a bit of time to get started on it, which is often the hardest thing to do, get started on it. So I really encourage that. But Max will show you that, and then I'll probably make a concluding statement, and then we'll finish off for the day. But over to you, Max.
I was just typing a response to Lisa, who shared an interesting perspective regarding speed management, because it is kind of referred to as the silver bullet within road safety. It has such a huge impact on reducing likelihood and severity. And I was just going to say something to the effect of, yes, you may be reducing operating speeds, you may be changing the look and feel of certain environments, but it's certainly not a one-size-fits-all approach. It's not about uniform blanketing speed limit reductions on every single road across the network, because that just wouldn't work, both from a community perspective and also just from a functional perspective. And I suppose the intention of these safe system thinking is not every road does need a low speed limit. Ken, feel free to correct me on that if you disagree, but we do have the ability to drive at higher speeds, and if we can create environments that the infrastructure that supports those higher speeds, then there's no reason we shouldn't have those higher speeds there. So it's just making sure that the road environment kind of matches the number in that little red circle, and making sure that we're protecting all road users within that space.
I absolutely agree, Max. I think you put it really well, and by no means is a safe system about just lowering speed limits for the hell of it. It's about appropriate speed limits for the infrastructure we have in place. There's a couple of additional points that I just wanted to add there. The first one is that I think there's a lot of myth around lower speed limits and speed having any sort of meaningful impact on travel times in urban areas. That's just not the case. Like it's your lights phasing, the phasing of your traffic lights, and are far more influential than any of that sort of stuff. But that aside, and just the traffic volumes and congestion and all of that. But that aside, the one of the best aligned safe system areas we possibly have out there are racetracks. Like, racetracks are just a wonderful safe system environment. They have alert and compliant road users that know the rules and sort of follow the rules. The infrastructure has been designed for high speeds. It's taken into account energy absorption, energy management. If there's areas where vulnerable road users are, like the pits or the like, they know their speed. It's isolated to that. They slow down. They follow those rules. The vehicles have wonderful safety features in them. And under those scenarios, you can do massive speed and still be really well aligned with safe system principles. So it shows it's not about the speed as such. It's appropriateness of speed for the management of that energy in those scenarios. Anyway, but I think you're right there. And yeah.
It's always a difficult topic. There's no doubt about that. Anyway, I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you can
Yep.
see that there, Ken.
Yeah.
So we've got Moodle up there, and hopefully everyone's familiar with this by now, but just to clarify what is required to complete the course and receive your certificate. So we do have a module 6 quiz after today's session, which will be available. So recommend hopping onto that while everything's still fresh. And then at the bottom here is feedback and certificates. So we do have it's a short survey just to get your feedback on the course, and if you can recommend any improvements or anything that you would perhaps alter, please do let us know. And that is actually required in order to get the SSA certificate. So if you're wondering why the certificate isn't going through yet, please make sure that's completed as well. But you'll see down here the SSA certificate, you can't actually click on it yet. And that's because all those activities below need to be completed. So you need to have completed all the quizzes and achieve the minimum pass mark, as well as assignment number 2 and the complete your safe system assessment. And both of those need to be reviewed and graded to ensure that you've passed them. Once you've done all those activities and the competencies have been reviewed and we've graded everything, then that SSA certificate will be open as a link. You can click on that and we'll be able to ship off your certificate, and as well as any prizes that you may have won along the way. So you'll get one package with your certificate and everything else that has been provided. So I think that's it regarding the that process there. Hopefully that makes sense. If you do have any issues accessing the certificate, please just let me know, and we'll be sure to tidy that up for you. But that's the end of the module tour for today, and I'll pass back over to Ken.
Yeah, thanks, Max. And so just a reminder there, you'll be able to download an electronic copy of your certificate and you will get something in the mail. There's a question there about the deadline for the Safe System Assessment, Max. So I think that's a week from today, is it?
Due on Thursday, the 4th of November.
Okay.
At 5:05 p.m.
Okay. So you've got another week there to do it. If you're really struggling on that time frame, you could contact Max. But obviously, in order to, get the certificate and complete the course, you're going to need to submit all of that anyway. Get in contact with us if you've got any questions. So just a couple of things to finish, and then give you that time to get onto that. Thank you, Max, for your work behind the scenes, getting this all up and running. Very much appreciated. Thanks to everybody who's actually taken time out of their busy schedules to investigate how we can improve road safety. And the Safe System Assessment Framework, I'm pretty passionate about it because I'm seeing how much value it adds. And I love the fact that we're starting to build up now a army of safe system assessors out there across Australia and New Zealand, and you're now part of it, as I said, on the early stages of it. But we want you out there promoting the tool, using the tool. So talk to your clients or your peers or others about your projects and say, are we doing safe system assessments on these? Should we be? You can help out. You can sort of be there offering it as a service. Of course, Max and I are happy to send you information if things pop up that you in the future, you've got questions, you can always get in contact with us. We're happy to talk that through with you, or send you examples, or point you at research or the like. I do suggest, you share that, with your peers, that you know how this safe system assessment process works now, and you're happy to help them out with that. Have a think about sharing your certificate online. If you're on social media, we're always happy for you to let people know, share the certificate. And if you're on LinkedIn and you want to share it, do at Safe System Solutions as well, so we can then share that with others. But I think it's good for people to know that you're a safe system assessor now, and you're committed to that. And it really does take a lot of us to be committed to it, and I really want you to be pushing road safety forward. If the easiest thing to do is just do what we've always done, and we're not going to get any actual change if we just continue to do what we've always done. So this pushes pushes the boundaries, and it challenges some, people who are very traditional in the way that they've done things, and we need to do that to get change to happen. So thank you once again. I'm not going to take any more of your time up. Max, any final things that have come in that need to be covered?
No, thanks everyone for the wonderful comments. It's been fantastic, and look forward to issuing all these certificates and getting more wonderful safe system assessors out there. So thanks very much.
Thanks everyone. Keep in contact, and have a good rest of the day.
Cheers.
Bye.